Thank you, everyone. Good evening. My name is Karen. I'm a grateful, recovering, compulsive overeater. Thank you for inviting me to speak with you this evening. In deciding what to share with you, I drew inspiration from a lead I heard at a recent meeting that included elements related to trauma and mental health. That lead opened the door to such a valuable area of focus. So I decided tonight to share my experience, strength, and hope on the topic of recovery and healing in OA following a traumatic childhood. Given the prevalence of abuse and other trauma within so many families, including those of people I encounter in these rooms, this topic is the one that most speaks to me today. I'll begin my share with an excerpt from our daily reader for today. It's the entry for February 19th. It speaks of getting in touch with feelings, holding them up, and examining them in the light of sobriety and abstinence. It reads, "The great phantoms of misery vanish under such scrutiny, because I have worked my way through to the source of my unhappiness." This passage really resonates with me because the self examination that I'm called upon to perform in OA has freed me from the shackles of compulsive food behavior and allowed me to walk in the light of spiritual recovery. Indeed, the pain of the abuse I endured as a child feels softer and more manageable when examined in the light of abstinence. I often hear references to recovery as a three-legged stool: emotional, physical, and spiritual. So this evening, I'll talk about my emotional, physical, and spiritual recovery in OA and how my abuse history has affected my recovery. Let me begin then with a few words about my early experiences and my life before OA. I would say that my experiences as a young girl profoundly influenced my relationship with food, God, and myself. I, like so many people in these rooms, grew up in a dysfunctional family. I experienced sexual assault and abuse from the age of 4. At the age of 5, my parents divorced and the incest continued. I'll just say briefly, just to give you an idea of how horrific the conditions were in my home. I can tell you that one of my 2 brothers moved out of the house at a young age while still a teenager, and the other died by suicide at 17. As you can imagine, during my growing up years and beyond, my parents were entirely unavailable to me emotionally, so I learned to parent myself as best I could. How did I do that? Every time I felt fearful or alone, I turned to food. Food was my solace, my comfort, my friend. Instinctively, I wore a layer of fat as protective armor, believing on some level that being overweight could protect me from further abuse. This wasn't true, of course. Instead, my fear made me a target for further sexual harassment over the years. In all likelihood, my overweight did not protect me a bit, but I didn't know that. To be honest, I was only vaguely conscious of the many ways I tried to control my life and others by carrying extra weight. As an adult, I wanted to lose weight, but I didn't want to experience any unwanted attention that might come as a result. So when it came to my food behaviors, I had one foot on the gas and the other foot on the brake. I would diet and binge, earnestly believing the media's claims that being thin would bring me happiness, but afraid that being thin would leave me vulnerable. During the decades then leading up to my recovery in OA, I always knew that if I could just get to the root of what led me to overeat, I too would be able to maintain a healthy body weight. After all, I could see that my friends and loved ones were slender and full of life. I just couldn't understand how they did it. I was baffled. I felt like I'd been denied the magic key that would allow me to enter the world of normal eaters, a world where people seemingly magically maintained a healthy body weight. It was only when I came to OA that I learned what I had been missing, a relationship with a loving higher power. So let me tell you now about my spiritual recovery in OA. Before I came to OA, I had no need for God. I felt that if God had truly loved me, God would have protected me from the abuse. I was so busy being angry at God that I didn't listen to God or even notice, much less express gratitude for everything that was good and beautiful in my life. I truly believed that my life and relationships were perfectly healthy, even though I lashed out at anyone who didn't do what I wanted them to do. I was so out of touch with reality that I believed that through my own utter fabulousness and my strong will, I had overcome the abuse I had endured as a child. I had everything under control. Thank you. Besides, if I needed comfort, love, or care, I always had food, which was, to my mind, way more reliable than God. Even in recovery, even when my higher power gave me the amazing gift of abstinence, I remained absolutely unwilling to turn my will and life over to the care of God. No step three for me, thank you. I wanted all the benefits of recovery without giving up any of the control. The God I knew, the God of my childhood, had let me down utterly. So I was not willing to trust him with any part of my life. Then my sponsor spoke words that finally opened the door, if only a crack. She said, "Listen, Karen, God did not let you down. It was the adults in your life who were supposed to protect you who let you down." Those words created space for me to consider taking step three, like really take step three, not just pretend to take step three. Then I experienced a major life trauma a short time later, a short time after my sponsor had spoken those words. And when I was brought to my knees, when I realized that I had no choice but to turn my will and my life over to the care of my higher power, I began to experience the miracles of recovery. Since that time, my spiritual recovery and conscious contact with God have deepened and changed who I am. I'm proud of my spiritual recovery. I'm grateful for it. I'm grateful for the ways I endeavor to cultivate further connection with my higher power on a daily basis. And I'll tell you more about this if there's time at the end. But spiritual recovery, of course, is only one aspect of recovery in OA. There's also emotional and physical recovery. I would say that the most challenging aspects of emotional recovery following a history of early abuse involved learning to trust myself and others and learning to believe that my wants and needs were important. To me, emotional recovery meant recognizing for the first time that the world and people are inherently safe. Growing up, I had been taught that my intuition was wrong. When I expressed to my family that I was hurting, I was met with a wall of silence. So I quickly learned that it was safer to turn off the inner alarm bells and play make believe that everything was okay. But I tell you, it was very painful to live the same lie my family was living. By the time I came to OA, then I was essentially an emotional cripple. I didn't know how to be honest with myself or others. I I didn't even know that honesty was an option. So my relationships were a real mess, full of lies and deceit. I simply didn't know that there was another way to live. But through the 12 steps of OA, I have found emotional recovery. I have learned that the world is not only a safe place, it is a beautiful, magical place where miracles happen every day. I have watched in wonder as my relationships have begun to heal, and I have found the courage to speak my truth. I have also learned that I don't need to protect people from me. I'm not dangerous. Even though my parents were not attuned to me emotionally, it wasn't because I was too much, which is what I came to believe as a result of their rejection. It wasn't that I was too much or that there was something wrong with me. There was nothing wrong with me then, and there's nothing wrong with me now. So now that I have learned to stop feeling that I need to protect others from me, I've stopped making decisions for other people. I've stopped trying to guess what their boundaries are, for example. Thanks to my emotional recovery in OA, I can express my wants and needs without feeling like a burden on others. And I can simply trust people to maintain their boundaries as they see fit. I can ask, they can say yes or no. I've learned that I don't have to pretend to be someone else in order to be loved. I can just be myself, and that is enough. The physical recovery I have experienced in OA has been no less miraculous than my spiritual and emotional recovery. During the early months of my OA program, I watched in wonder as my body was transformed. When I focused on my spiritual recovery, God took care of my weight. Not only did my higher power give me the gift of energy, vitality, and a healthy body weight, I also gained a new relationship with food, with God, with myself, with others, with life, right? I've learned to accept life on life's terms without the protective layer of fat I carried for so many years. And now that I have a relationship with a loving higher power, I feel safer, even without the fat, than I have ever felt before. And for me, this feeling of felt safety in the world, regardless of what my body looks like, has been one of the greatest miracles of my recovery. Now I'd like to illustrate how my recovery in OA has opened opportunities for healing, opportunities that I had never imagined possible. Before recovery, I didn't talk about my abuse history. My husband didn't know about it. I didn't tell my daughter. I didn't really talk about it with anyone. I was mortified by the thought of what people might think of me if I told them about the incest. But the love, hope, and acceptance I found in OA gave me the courage to open up to others. The first time I shared my story of recovery in OA at a meeting, I decided to take a chance and include just a few words about my abuse history as it related to my recovery. Over the years, I've alluded to my abuse history during a number of shares and several times as an invited speaker. Uh, well, I'll mention I've this is my ninth year in OA. I find that my recovery in OA allows me to view my abuse history through a new lens, not through a lens of shame, but through a lens of compassion for myself and for anyone who's endured abuse or other trauma. Shame and embarrassment about the incest and about the many ways this abuse has touched my life have largely fallen away. As further testimony to the freedom I have found in this program, I'm pleased to say that about 3 years ago, I took an even bigger step toward healing, a step I had never imagined possible. I had never even considered it. I flew to New York to tell my story for a documentary film that was released a couple of years ago. And thanks to OA, I've learned not only that I do not need to protect people from me, but that my story has the potential to help and inspire others. Since then, higher power has opened even more doors to healing. Just prior to the release of the film, higher power told me it was time to dive deeper and to trust in the healing wisdom of my body and soul. Higher power called me to travel back to my home state of Wisconsin for important conversations related to the incest and to spend time in some of the homes where I had experienced this abuse. Spending quiet time in the same physical spaces where I had been sexually abused 40 years earlier brought healing and serenity that I had never dreamed possible. And during those travels, I shared my story freely with former colleagues, friends, and teachers. I even broke through the wall of silence and shame to tell extended family members about the abuse, something that was simply not allowed in my family. I can say in all honesty that I am not the same person I was before I made that trip back to my home state. And having tasted God the way I did during this experience, I have no more fear. I've walked through it and come out the other side. Having turned my will, my life, and my healing over to the care of God, I have been reborn. For the next step in my healing journey, higher power called me to use my experience and skills in a new area as a volunteer working with displaced orphans in war-torn Ukraine. Even as I experienced air raid sirens and rolling blackouts, I felt safe in the loving arms of my higher power. I knew that no matter what happened to me there, whether I came home safely or I died there, I would still be with my higher power. And that's what takes away the fear. No matter what happens to me, I have a higher power. I'm with that higher power, whether I'm alive on this earth or not. It's a privilege for me to have reached a point in my healing where I can begin to offer real support to others who are suffering. That's just another gift of my recovery. Um, I'd like to say a few words about the benefits of working the program and of being in spiritual, emotional, and physical recovery. And then I'll close in about 10 minutes. In terms of my spiritual recovery, three things came up this morning. One is that I'm never truly alone, and I don't fear loneliness because there are always two of us, at least two. There's always my higher power and me. And and having this relationship with my higher power and never feeling truly alone, never truly like lonely, right? What does that look like? My higher power and I, oh man, we're tight. We laugh together, we cry together, we talk about things. Sometimes I talk and talk and talk and talk and talk to higher power. And other days I listen, 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 listen. Higher power jokes with me and I joke back. Higher power um sometimes we'll play little practical jokes just to make me laugh because higher power always knows what I need in any given moment. So of course the relationship is very alive. It's very changeable depending on what I need. But I just love knowing that I'm never truly alone. Another benefit of spiritual recovery for me is that, oh my gosh, I don't have to make big decisions anymore. Like before I came to OA and turned my will and my life over to the care of a loving higher power, I had to control things. I had to make big decisions, and that was scary. Now in OA, I can turn absolutely everything over to the care of my higher power and just show up and enjoy the ride. Life is such an adventure in step 3. Because I don't know, of course, what higher power has in mind for me for that day. And what I love too is that higher power helps me make decisions about absolutely everything. There's nothing small. There are no like little small details for my higher power. I don't turn to higher power just when I have, some big things. It can be little, like today. I'm I'm at a hotel in Portland, Oregon, and I had some morning time before I came to this meeting. I said, "Okay, higher power, what do you think? Shall I walk this morning or shall I go to the swimming pool here at the hotel?" Higher power said, go for a walk. You'll love it. So I love that higher power responds even to my smallest requests. Um, that's that's fun. That just makes life an adventure. And since even when life hurts, I know higher powers with me. I can go through life's ups and downs. Um, the third thing, I'll just say 3 things about the spiritual recovery. What I love about having a relationship with higher power is that I get previews of coming attractions. Uh, when you go to a movie theater in the United States, the movie theater always will show previews of coming attractions. And higher power does this for me too. For example, about 2 years ago, higher power said, "You're gonna move to Chicago." And I said, "Wow, cool. When?" Higher power said, "Well, I'll let you know." Great. So for the past couple of years, I've known that I'll be moving to Chicago. And I have just said, "Okay, higher power, just let me know when." And so on Sunday, 3 days ago, higher power said, "Okay, it's time. Get ready. Put in for your transfer." And so I did. I and now I just have to wait for the transfer to come through. Higher power is in charge of the results. I'm in charge of my actions, right? Higher power said, put in for the transfer, and eventually I will get you to Chicago when I want you to be there. So it's fun. It's fun to get little glimpses of what higher power has in store for me, and just to wait. It's kind of like it's like Christmas, right? Oh, I'm gonna get a gift. I wonder what it's gonna be. In my case, it's I've got a gift. I know what it is. I wonder when it's gonna happen. So those are just some of the benefits of having a close relationship with my higher power, my spiritual recovery. In terms of emotional recovery, I love I love how I feel about life, right? I am more patient, I'm more understanding, much less volatile. I feel more grounded, like, all the time. Even when difficult things happen, I'm still able to maintain that feeling of really being held by my higher power. And that helps me with my emotions. It helps me feel cared for so that I don't sort of get lost in my emotions. I feel them, which is what higher power wants me to do. I feel them, and I can just grab higher power's hand and dive into them. I don't have to feel my emotions alone. Because before OA, I turned to food so that I wouldn't have to feel those emotions because I felt alone and they felt too scary for me to feel by myself. Now that I'm not by myself, I can feel the emotions. I have more compassion for myself and others. And this compassion for myself is exactly what gives me compassion for others. It gives me that patience. If someone's triggered, in a situation and is dysregulated and having a hard time, I don't need to take it on. I can just feel compassion because I've been there. I get dysregulated too. I get scared too. And this program has taught me how to just be with those people in those moments and give them compassion. I don't need to scold people. I don't need to tell people what to do. I just need to love them. That's what higher power wants me to do. Higher power wants me to love the people on this earth. And I can do that thanks to my OA program. I feel such great gratitude for the capacity to feel my emotions. Yeah, I went through most of my life without feeling much of anything but a pain in my belly from overeating. In terms of my physical recovery, the benefits include just just the basic notion that I now have the capacity to use food for what it was created for, to meet my physical needs for nutrition. I used to use food for everything else. I used to use food when I was bored, when I was scared, when I was angry. I used to use food when I felt anything at all. And now I turn to food for my physical needs for nutrition, and I turn to my higher power for my spiritual needs, my emotional needs. Or I turn to people for, for my emotional needs. Um, food for me is not the issue, right? For me, the issue is life and how I handle my life, how I handle my emotions. So I think a great benefit in terms of my physical recovery is really that freedom from food obsession. I was never obsessed with food. I was obsessed with finding a way to avoid feeling my feelings, right? Because I'm repeating myself. I turned to food for spiritual nourishment instead of turning to a higher power. So I love that I can see food as fuel. Um, and so I don't go hang out in the kitchen with food, right? Just like just like I don't drive to the filling
I
station.
put two down here. Okay. I put two down here.
I don't drive to the filling station when I don't need fuel for my car. I don't hang out. Just don't go hang out at the filling station. So I don't go hang out in the kitchen when it's not mealtime. Yeah, it's just a really different way of looking at food. And since I only have a couple of minutes left, I'll close by expressing my just absolute heartfelt gratitude for the OA program of recovery. Oh, thanks to OA, I have found abstinence, serenity, and healing for my soul. The feelings of isolation, helplessness, and fear that once drove me to eat compulsively have been replaced by feelings of connection, empowerment, and trust in myself and others. I feel connected to you. I feel connected to my higher power. That's all thanks to OA. I've learned, of course, that I'm never truly alone. I have my fellows. I have my higher power. My higher power is always with me, and all of you are just a phone call away. Oh, abuse continues to shape who I am and continues to affect my relationships, no doubt. It affects the way I view the world. But over time, I want to just reiterate that bringing my feelings out into the light has softened the edges. Bringing this abuse out into the light has softened the edges and allowed me to see all the facets of life rather than just the pain. And my abuse doesn't dictate my behavior in the same ways it used to. Instead, it deepens my compassion for others and for myself. And it allows me to feel awe toward the enduring human spirit. Thanks to OA, I'm living a brand new life. Thank you for allowing me to share my thoughts with you this evening.
Thank you so much, Karen. That was lovely. Once we're not recording, we'll all get an opportunity to appreciate. Thank you, Karen. We will now open the meeting to Q&A section of our meeting, which will also be recorded. Please post your questions in the chat function. I will ask them on your behalf. This is due to, and I know that Alan, please see the note in the chat, everyone that Alan put in about the updated Zoom chat. It can be a little confusing, but it's there. Here's our first question, Karen, after you take that drink of water. Get you all settled. Thank you so much, Karen, for such a powerful share. Do you have times when you feel distant or when it seems harder to stay connected to your higher power? If so, what do you do to get out of it?
Thank you for the question. Are there times when I feel distant and how do I get out of it? I don't always notice when I start to feel distant. But what I see, what happens to me when I start to feel distant is I start to have thoughts about food between meals. And in those moments I remind myself that that is my higher power saying, "Hey Karen, where did you go?" My higher power doesn't distance herself from me. I distance myself from my higher power. And so I have to look for those little clues. Uh-oh, I'm thinking about food. Uh-oh, my portions are getting a little bit bigger. Uh-oh, I have only gone to one meeting this week instead of more. And when I feel that distance, I put my hand on my heart right here to like ground. I put my hand on my heart and I talk to God. I say, "Oh, hey, sorry, I've gotten really busy at work," which you already know because you're watching over me. "I've gotten really busy at work. Sorry, I haven't checked in with you lately. What do you need me to hear?" For me, that has been the magic question over the years in OA. What do you need me to hear? How do you need me to be right now? And that's how I reconnect. Higher power is close always, right? Even if I can't feel higher power. And I just remind myself if I can't feel higher power, the issue is not with higher power, the issue is with me. So usually I slow down. I try to get more rest. I remind myself that I don't have time not to be in contact with higher power. Because if I don't have my recovery, I have nothing and I lose everything. Thanks for your question. I hope I answered it.
Thanks, Karen. Our next question. Thank you so much, Karen. Can you say something about how you go about approaching your step 10s?
My step tens, so in terms of for example, a daily inventory, an on the spot inventory when things get a little bit wobbly, um, I I tend to I tend to be pretty quick to see what's going wrong on the spot. I stop. I shut my mouth, especially if I'm saying stupid things, for lack of a better word. Um, I quit arguing. I quit feeling like I have to be right. Shut my mouth, and I start listening to God. And I ask, "Hey, what's really going on here?" I don't always ask it out loud. It depends on if the person's in recovery, right? Sometimes people I have found that people in recovery they don't have the same language for a relationship with a higher power. They don't have the same recovery related language, and can sometimes get a little very confused if I start using recovery related language with them. So what I do in those situations is I check in with higher power and I say, "Hey, what's going on? What's going on with this person? What's going on with me? Like, hey, why am I feeling dysregulated about what's going on here, right? Because it's not always about the other person. My reactions, they're all about me, right? How I react to life. So I'm like, oh, what just got triggered there? Oh, I'm hurting, I'm angry, I'm defensive. Higher power, what's going on underneath here? And I ask for higher power to give me the strength and courage to give myself some compassion and to take some time in the coming days to look at that hurt, that underlying hurt that drives my behavior. I have certainly learned to make amends much more quickly. I was so pleased at the beginning of my early in my recovery when I could make an amends to my daughter after only 3 days. I thought it was pretty impressive that I could make an amends at all. And then I could make it after 3 days, and then I could make it after an hour, and then I could make it immediately. So I've seen some spiritual progress in my recovery in terms of making amends. I am much quicker to make amends now than I ever have been in my life. And I love doing it because I've learned how to make amends in this program. So I'm always so happy to do it. Like, hey, I was wrong about this. I apologize. How exciting it is to go from feeling embarrassed about needing to make amends to being oh so eager to make them. What a great life I have in OA. I make so many mistakes and I make so many amends. Thanks for the question. I like that one.
Thank you, Karen. Let's see. Another question. Thanks so much, Karen. What an inspiring recovery journey. You mentioned your ability to listen to your higher power and converse. Do you hear your HP as an audible voice or as an inner voice? How did you develop this communication?
Oh, thanks for that question. I don't hear an audible voice, because HP for me isn't a physical presence. So just like I can hear the phone ring, I can't hear HP's voice right here in my ear. But it comes from this direction, and the way I recognize it is the quality of the interactions. Higher power speaks in short sentences, not a whole lot of explanations, right? Just short, to the point, neutral, and compassionate. Whereas my thoughts are just all over the place, just a huge jumble of thoughts and emotions and fears and concerns and all those very human things. So that's how I hear the difference. It's the quality of the voice, it's the quality of the statement, the quality of the voice. If I were to imitate how my higher power speaks to me, which I've never done before, higher power sounds like this: Karen, it's okay. I know you're hurting. I'm here. I'm holding you. Things like that. So very short statements, um, statements of support and compassion. That's how my higher power sounds. But again, I kind of hear it from over here for whatever reason. Thanks.
Thanks, Karen. Okay, we have time for more questions. So if you all want to put some more questions, that would be great. Here comes another one. So Karen, thank you for your lovely share. Very inspirational. Can you tell us a little bit about how you sponsor?
Mm, absolutely. Oh, I would say that for me, Sponsorship is absolutely a key to my recovery, and I'll admit I don't feel very confident as a sponsor. My sponsees, by and large, have pretty strong recovery and abstinence. Uh, but I wouldn't say that it's my strongest tool of recovery. One of the issues, right now I sponsor 3 people. Uh, since I'm active in service in Region 9 and in Region 3, I have recovery. I have sponsees right now in 3 different countries in a couple of different languages. Um, if they're a newcomer, I take them through the steps. I'm not taking newcomers right now. I I I just heard higher powers call a few years ago to join the board of trustees, and I became a trustee just a couple of weeks ago for OA. Um, and so in these months leading up to the new service at the world service level, um, I've I haven't taken on newcomers. What do I do? Uh, how do I sponsor? I meet with my sponsees usually about twice a month. I sponsor the way I was sponsored, the way I am sponsored. I have the same sponsor now that I had, 8 years ago. I've only had a single sponsor, and we would meet monthly to do our step work. And so I meet with my sponsees, all of them online because none of them are in my city, about twice a month. That's what my work schedule allows. And it's another reason I'm not taking on newcomers right now. I can't meet daily or weekly. Um, we sometimes we read OA literature. Uh, I'm very fond of the OA 12 and 12. Sometimes we read just stories from diverse voices or Overeaters Anonymous, other OA literature. Um, Sometimes I just listen. Hey, and I'll start. Hey, what do you need from me as your sponsor today? What's on your heart? What's on your mind? How are you feeling about your recovery? Um, I tend to be very soft as a sponsor, and that doesn't work for some people. Some people they want a daily 15-minute call. They want a lot of accountability. I'm not that sponsor. I am I am a very soft and gentle and loving and compassionate sponsor. So, uh, I at least recognize my strengths and weaknesses as a sponsor. I'm all touchy feely, right? So I'm just grateful that there are different kinds of sponsors, different paths of sponsorship, and we're all able to find someone who really resonates with us. Thanks for asking.
Thanks, Karen. Thank you for your lovely share. Karen, is there any literature that calls to you in OA literature?
Mm. The OA 12 and 12. I love that book. I recently translated it. I was working on editing a translation of it, so I had to study it word for word to check the translation. And so I know that OA 12 and 12 backwards and forwards. Um, I have found, I'm quite fond of Diverse Voices, that new one that came out a few months ago. I like the diversity of viewpoints. I like that we've got LGBTQ people, we've got people with different disabilities, we have people from different countries, we have people with very very different backgrounds. I like reading their stories, and I'm so glad that we have that piece of literature now. I'm fond of For Today and Voices of Recovery just because they're small and I can carry them with me when I travel. They're quite portable. And even if I don't have time to read a chapter of the Brown Book of Overeaters Anonymous, I have time to read 2 paragraphs. Like I can't pretend. I can't tell my higher power, "Oh, no time worth the program today," because for today is this big, right? So, um, yeah, those are the ones that I turn to most often. Our 2 daily readers and our purple 12 and 12. Uh, I will say that that having recently served on the literature committee, we are just starting to look at the possibility of having a secular reader. There's a subcommittee at the World Service at the WSO looking right now at readings that could be included in a secular daily reader. So I'm just really, super pleased with all the things going on at the World Service in terms of literature too. Just wanted to throw that out there. Thanks.
Oh, thank you, Karen.
Thanks.
Thank you so much. Thank you all for joining us today. Our meetings are recurring on a weekly basis, and our next meeting is scheduled for next Wednesday night in the UK, or if you're on the West Coast with me, 11:30 a.m., 7:30 UK time. May your higher power bless you and keep you until then. We will go ahead and stop